Hi, and welcome to Travels with Phil. I'm Phil Constantine, and we are in New York for this episode. And we're going to be visiting the Franklin Roosevelt Library, Museum, and his original home, Springwood, out here. And this is just along the Hudson River. You can see on the map there where New York City was in the lower left, Poughkeepsie just a little bit to the south, and it's on the east side of the river. You can see the setup here. That's the library on the upper right. That's where he's buried in a special garden. And Springwood is his childhood home. There you can see President Roosevelt on the left, his wife Eleanor on the right. So let's first off start off with looking at the Springwood.
Travels with Phil continues here from Springwood, Franklin Roosevelt's home, ancestral home. Though he did live here, we just took a tour. The lighting was very low inside, so it's a bit difficult. Come up and look around just a little bit. The view from the front, although the trees are probably bigger than they were now. Don't know if you're going to be able to see in the room, but we'll look and see if you can. All right, inside this room is where Roosevelt and Churchill worked out the Lend-Lease agreement for World War II before the United States got involved. He used to like this room here so he could come here and look out the window. So from Franklin Delano Roosevelt's home on the Hudson, Hyde Park.
And Hyde Park is the name of the place, or the town. This is Springwood, the name of they gave their mansion there. And some the outside looks here, and they get back in toward his office there. Lend-Lease was a very important act before World War II, before America's involvement in World War II. It's how they sort of got involved without officially getting involved. Lots and lots of pictures inside the house. As you can imagine, family's been there for quite some time, so they accumulated lots of stuff. And having been a president, you can imagine he'd have a few more mementos than your average person. The dining room, a little hard to get some pictures in here because the lighting was very low. It's trying to maintain the quality of all the items in here. You don't have very bright lights. And so some of these will be a little bit dim as we go through. And one of the studies out here, very, very nice. I love libraries, so this was a really nice spot. The Snuggery, place you went to go snuggle up or just get warm. An old statue or carving, whatever you want to call it, of FDR, which were his initials. These are some of the staff quarters in one part of the house, and this is some of the areas where the staff and where they lived. And his boyhood bedroom. This was the room where he grew up as a small child. And lots of little rooms out here. Third floor, the bathing area, special hand grips there for him to get in and out of the tub. People helping. The chintz room, that's a kind of fabric or a style of fabric. And a guest room here. And then this would be the birth room, or where he was literally born. He was born in the house. So this would have been the room in the spot. Coming around here, this was Eleanor's room. They had separate bedrooms for most of their life, or most of their married life. So she had lots of stuff. They did a lot of traveling separate from each other, so it was easier that way. And that was his bedroom right there. Franklin D. or Delano Roosevelt. Let's take a look outside. Now, it's a Hudson in the distance out there. You can see a little brown spot. And zoom in on one of the estates on the other side of the roadway out there, or the other side of the river, I should say. Now, this is the outside. This is the south side, now turning, looking toward the north, and there's Springwood right there. You can see a little bit more of it here in one of my panoramas. And then they have a nice stable out here, and then this part here is the library and museum, which is just next door. Very nice building. It's been around for 75 years when I was there, but they've done a lot of renovations to it. Very much larger than it looks. So let's take a look at the part here from the Berlin Wall.
Travels with Phil continues in Hyde Park. Springbrook is the name of the estate. This is the garden outside the Presidential Library, which is right over there. This is FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt on the left. Winston Churchill. These are pieces that came from the Berlin Wall. Now, you can see all the graffiti that's on these pieces. These are fairly tall. These are about 8-9 feet tall. Well, that was from the West Berlin side. This is from the East Berlin side. If you were on the East Berlin side, you didn't do a whole lot of graffiti work. You wouldn't have been that close to the wall itself. And there's a companion piece to this in Churchill's museum, according to this, in Fulton, Missouri, one of the places where they did some speeches. I believe that's where he gave the Iron Curtain speech, as memory serves me correctly.
And it does, that is it. That's where it
Parts of the Berlin Wall, the Four Freedoms presentation here at the Roosevelt Presidential Library and Home in Hyde Park. There you go, Joe Eager. You've seen that.
My friend Joe was at the Berlin Wall.
That was with the continues. This is FDR's 1936 Ford Phaeton. Says he enjoyed driving this car when he was at Hyde Park, specifically modified to be operated with hand controls that gave him the freedom to drive despite his disability. The controls were designed and installed by Fred Relier, a mechanic in Poughkeepsie. After his death, Eleanor used the car until 1946 when she presented it to the museum. Had 19,143 miles in it.
And unlike the pervasive nature of media, be it from just Facebook and regular media, most of the people in the United States did not know Franklin Roosevelt had polio and couldn't walk, basically unassisted. He may be able to take a few steps, but he spent a lot of his time in a wheelchair. So this car was especially adapted so he could drive it with just handles.
Travels with Phil continues in the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Library. For you radio folks out there, this is one of the radios that he used to do some of his fireside chats. This is an RCA Model 4A1 carbon condenser microphone. You can just hear the dong, dong, dong chimes going off. Travels with Phil continues. Here's some World War II Pearl Harbor history for you. This right here is the president's personal appointment diary. These are all the things that started happening. He had originally only a meeting with the Chinese ambassador. Once the information about Pearl Harbor came in, everything else, you can see all the list of personnel here. General George Marshall, Secretary of State, Vice President, all kinds of people there. This is what he was doing at the time that the announcements came in. He was looking at his personal stamp collection.
It was a Sunday.
This is the actual radiogram announcing it. That's the first one that came to Washington. And then this is the telegraph that they sent out to the press. It says the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor from the air and all naval and military activities on the island of Oahu, the principal American base in the Hawaiian Islands. Now, they also included a second paragraph. A second air attack is reported. This one has been made on Army and Navy bases in Manila. That one turned out to not be correct. The initial report was inaccurate on that one, but these are the actual documents here at the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Library.
You can hear some of the movies going on in the background. And this next section here is about the speech he gave when he asked Congress to declare war on Japan.
So Phil continues. This is the actual, I'll put it over here so you can read it yourself, the actual first draft of the President's Day of Infamy speech, the one that he gave to Congress, asking them to declare war. This is the actual item itself. It says there, they're one of the most treasured items here, if not the most treasured. Zoom in a little bit here.
Actually, see
yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. And now initially up there it said world history, so he changed that. You can slowly scroll through all that. Page number 2. Can't tell if that's in focus or not. Sorry about that, folks. Looks like it's in focus now. But that's one of the most famous speeches in American history, and that's the actual first draft copy of it with the president's handwritten notes on it.
They have significantly a large amount of artifacts here. That was one of his campaign hats. These is his gavel he used during a Democratic convention. A little device he used to reach for things. These were actual leg braces, so he could walk or at least stand up. And a cane he would often use when he used the braces themselves. This was a Jewish document that was given to him by groups. He was not Jewish, but they presented it to him. The Sphinx design. Now, this was his private study. They reconstructed it here. And he had 4 freedoms, which he talked about, which I showed you outside the Berlin Wall there, that were very important to his way of doing work. Now, this is the desk he used in the Oval Office in the White House, the actual desk itself. A lot of the trinkets on top there as well. And here he's talking about the 4 essential freedoms: speech, expression, want, worship. These were the things that he felt that everybody should have, and freedom of fear, from fear. Now, Eleanor did a lot of traveling. That's her actual suitcase that she used for most of her trips. She did a lot of typing, a lot of writing. And this was the actual typewriter she used, and then another picture of his car. And then a little girl playing with a rabbit outside. I just thought that was sort of cute, and have it so you can sit down with them.
Travels with Phil continues. This is Anne's garden. Show it to you. Some very dramatic plants out here. Very nice. That's the stable up there that says 1886. The brownish building with the white dot. This is Franklin and Eleanor's graves. It says Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Hers goes by her listed first name, Anna Eleanor Roosevelt. 1962. He's the one with the flag. She's the one without it. And that's all it says. Just a lovely garden out here. This was his mother's garden. And when he knew he wasn't doing well, he told everyone that he wanted to be placed here in his Anna's garden, or his mother's garden. Travels with Phil continues from Hyde Park, New York.
Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up by clicking on the button below. You're welcome to leave comments below as long as the language is family friendly. And finally, if you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the button over on the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you again for watching.